Hi, it's Makaela here. Thanks for listening to my podcast. What you're about to listen to is an old episode of my podcast, The Midlife Awakening, which has now been replaced with the Deliberately Transformed Woman podcast. You'll still find some golden takeaways in these old episodes, but if you're the type of person who wants to discover and let go of the things that are holding you back in life by busting through fear and procrastination, overcoming imposter syndrome, and stepping into a life that is fulfilling, courageous, and intentional, then my new podcast episodes, starting from episode 21, are the ones you're looking for. You're listening to episode 14 of the Midlife Awakening podcast with Makaela Moore. Welcome to the Midlife Awakening podcast. I'm Makaela Moore, your host and certified transformation coach. I'm a 40-something woman who nerds out on brain science and believes every woman should be financially independent. This podcast is for women navigating their midlife who want to learn the secrets to unlocking their brain and freeing themselves from everything that holds them back so they can create lasting change in their lives, because everything is possible. Join me each week for conversations about the midlife and tips and tricks to hack your subconscious brain so you can deliberately transform your life and ultimately create your own financial security. First time here? Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Enjoy! And welcome to the silly season. This is actually my second take of this episode due to some, shall I say, technical difficulties. Hashtag, human error. Thanks to me trying to do all the things. So I hope I managed to record an episode just as good or possibly better than the first version I did of this one. I am sitting today in an absolute place of gratitude, and honestly, it's for no particular reason. I'm just feeling happy and grateful and appreciating all the things. Sid and I we went to put our Christmas tree up on December 1st, only to realise that we'd thrown it away last year after it broke. So instead of going to the shops, I thought I'd, do the smart thing and have one delivered. Bom bom. It has now been 3 weeks and still no tree. But I am promised it'll be delivered by Monday the 23rd. So, at least we'll have a couple of days of Christmas tree joy. I've been reflecting on this year and how much I have evolved too. And I am just so thankful for a few key coaches and mentors who have really helped me move the needle in my business and in my brain. It has been a year of massive growth for me, and I am so excited to be heading into the new decade with a completely different mindset than ever before, because I have so many great things planned for 2020. It is going to be an epic year for me, my business, my clients, and you, my listeners. So much good stuff is coming. I would love to hear what you've got planned for next year. So jump on over to my Instagram at makaela.moore and drop me a comment over there on what you've got planned for next year, because I would actually love to get some feedback from you. But on to today's topic, which when I started this, I called it the silly season. And, so many people do call it the silly season. It is the season of all sorts of things. Christmas time is summer here in Australia, and honestly, we're melting at the moment. Our kids are on holidays for between 6 and 8 weeks, so it is a season of, all sorts of craziness and busyness. And obviously Christmas and then New Year's is a big part of that. And along come, all of the parties and engagements and invitations. There's the rushing to get all the work done before the Christmas holiday, the buying of the presents, the cooking of all the food, preparing for all the guests, travel for many people, and the heat. And oh my God, we are just seriously melting here. And of course, doing it all while our kids are on school holidays and complaining that they're bored. It is a big mixture of all the things, and people just simply get very overwhelmed at this time of year. But among other things today, I want to tell you why when we call it the silly season, we actually create a silly season for ourselves. So with Christmas only 1 week away, I just knew that I had to do a special Christmas edition all about dealing with busyness and overwhelm at this time of year, but also in learning how to balance the craziness, saying no, and coping with people who perhaps trigger you for one reason or another. So firstly, let's talk about overcommitting to things, because that is probably one of the top 3 reasons why people get frazzled at this time of year. We say yes to far too many things, and then we struggle to carry through with everything, busting our butts to do all the things, often resenting other people and beating ourselves up, and not having a good time while we're doing it. I have been guilty of this one, particularly when it comes to hosting Christmas. My hubby and we've always hosted Christmas here because our place is the most logical place for our extended family, because they all just live in smaller houses, whereas ours is a big place with plenty of room for everyone. Combined with the fact that we don't particularly want to leave our front gates on Christmas Day, it suits us perfectly. I've always tried to be the hostess with the mostess, and I needed everything to be perfect. I was a complete control freak when it came to all the planning and preparation and cooking, etc. I used to spend way too many hours stressing and working my butt off to create what I believed to be the perfect Christmas day for our family, only to get to the end of the day and not be able to relax and enjoy it for myself because I'd been so busy playing the perfectionistic hostess. That was the old me. For the last few years, though, the new me has given less shits. It's not that I care any less, it's that I realised that even if I placed less attention on it all, and I wasn't so attached to how everything needed to be just so, that if I let go and released control, everything would still be okay. I have discovered that if we don't have the perfect napkins or bonbons and place settings, that everything will be okay. That if the glazed ham isn't as perfect as last year, that everything would still be okay. If I was just dressed in nice casual clothes instead of dressing up, everything would still be okay. If the presents weren't wrapped like they'd just come out of a David Jones catalogue, everything would still be okay. And that if we didn't have 17 different kinds of food dishes on offering, everything would still be okay. That if my house wasn't decorated as well as Martha Stewart's, everything would still be okay. Basically, I came to realise that no matter what I did or didn't do for Christmas, everything would still be fine, because I would decide that it was okay or fine. One of my coaches has a saying, and it's that everything is, always has been, and always will be okay or fine. And it's true, because the only time that something is not okay is because we attach a meaning to it to make it not fine or okay. And so instead of killing yourself trying to make Christmas perfect, take a step back and look at what your definition of perfect is. Would it really matter if you didn't have the perfect table setting for Christmas? Would it really matter if your presents weren't wrapped like they came out of a catalogue? Would it really matter if your ham or turkey didn't look like those in the recipe? Actually, would it matter if you didn't have them at all? Would it really matter if you bought the barbecue chooks from the local chicken shop instead of slaving over the hot stove in summer to cook them for yourself? Would it really matter if you didn't decorate your home like, Chevy Chase for Christmas? Would it really matter if the gingerbread biscuits are bought from the shop and not homemade? I am not saying there's anything wrong with doing any of those things, but do you really have to do it all? Which brings me to my next point, the no train. You absolutely have to get on the no train before it leaves the station. At any time of year, you have to prioritise yourself and your needs above others. #oxygen mask. And this time of year is even more important because there is just so much more going on, but only if we let it. I talked a lot about this in episode 12, where I talked about the juggle struggle and self-care. We need to put ourselves first, and that can often mean saying no to things. I said it recently, I'm not sure if it was in a podcast episode or maybe a Facebook Live, but I was talking about how we seem to get a lot of invitations from people at this time of year, saying things like, oh, we need to catch up before Christmas. And so often these invitations are from people that I probably haven't seen all year. And then suddenly they must catch up with me before Christmas. Like, why? If you want to catch up with me, do it in January or even in July. These are the invitations that we need to say no to unless it's something we really, really want to do. And saying yes to these sort of invitations when we don't really want to is one of the things that contributes to this time of year becoming crazy and us becoming frustrated. Say no to cooking all the food for Christmas. If you've got guests coming, ask them each to bring something and be strategic with it so that you plan out what each person can bring. And when you put all of them together, it makes a good balanced Christmas lunch instead of having 7 different potato salads and no green salad, or everyone bringing shortbread and ending up with no ham. Christmas is for everyone to enjoy, but someone needs to do the work. So share the load and ask everyone to pitch in with everything from the planning and the preparation to cooking and cleaning up. Because if you end up doing it all, you will hit the deck on Christmas afternoon a right mess and begrudge every single person in that room for enjoying themselves at your expense. It doesn't take much for everyone to do something and contribute and to help you enjoy the day too. Now, what stories are you telling yourself right now about Christmas and the end of year? I caught myself saying the other day, the year has gone by so fast. And someone else said, oh, I feel like I'm limping to the finish line of the year. And I heard someone else say, I'm so not ready for Christmas. And I think I'm guilty of saying all 3 of those things at one point or another. Whatever the story that you're telling yourself is the reality that you're creating for yourself. If you tell yourself that this is the silly season, then it will be the silly season. If you tell yourself this time of year is crazy, it will be crazy. If you tell yourself that you're not ready for Christmas, then you won't be. If you tell yourself that Christmas is too complicated, it will be. If you tell yourself that it's all overwhelming and you're struggling, then that is exactly how things will be. Whatever stories we tell ourselves is what we will create. And it's the expectations that we set for ourselves that usually bring us the most stress and overwhelm when those expectations are not met. So instead of telling yourself all the negative stories, turn them around and start creating some possibility stories and then set some boundaries. So instead of saying, Christmas is such a rush and I have so much to do, maybe try telling yourself that Christmas is wonderful and you are super organized. Or that Christmas doesn't have to be complicated and you're going to keep it simple. Whatever you tell yourself is what you'll create, so make it a good self-talking. And now we need to set boundaries. And this can be boundaries around what you will or won't do, or it could be boundaries about who you will or won't be drawn into. The will or won't do list. Now, you need to make a list, be it mental or on paper, of what you will or will not do this year. And it could be that you will not do all the cooking. You will not do all the Christmas present shopping. You will not do all the shopping at the shops, but maybe do some online. You will not leave your food shopping to the last minute. You will not do all the cleaning up. You will not do all the present wrapping. You will not feel guilty for spending however much you spend this Christmas. You will not allow your mother, sister, aunt, whoever to dictate how your Christmas day will go. Whatever you do want though, write it down now and decide what your boundaries are and stick to them. Say no without guilt. Know what is important and what is just extra and probably unnecessary. You do not have to say yes to going to all the parties. No is a complete sentence and you do not need to explain yourself. If you feel the need to explain yourself, then don't lie. Just tell them that you're overextended and you need to prioritize your time, or whatever story is true for you. Most people will actually appreciate your honesty. Is it something that is really important to you? Then do it, but don't feel obliged to say yes to all the things. Don't do gift exchanges with everyone. You don't need to buy a gift for every single person. It is consumerism at its finest, getting everyone to spend all their money for no reason at this time of year. I am not a Grinch. Don't get me wrong. I'm by no means a Grinch. But I do see a lot of unnecessary spending. And that leads us to a lot of unwanted gifts and a lot of waste, both from all of the, excessive packaging and the potential dust collectors. And none of that is good for our environment. We need to simplify our lives, not fill them up. Don't feel obligated to give every single person a gift. A simple Christmas wish is enough. Don't feel obligated to return a gift if someone buys something for you. If you really want to give someone a gift, then do so. But take the pressure off them and tell them that they don't have to reciprocate, that you are just doing it because you want to. Be very intentional with what you say yes to, because every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And let it be okay for you to say no to whatever and whoever you want or don't want. And that now brings me to my next topic. Dealing with, shall I say, toxic people. We all have them in our families. It could be our mother, sister, father, brother, aunt, grandmother, cousin, sister-in-law, anyone. It doesn't matter who it actually is. We all have that one person or more who really grates on us. They get under our skin, they annoy us, they irritate us, and they bring out the worst in us. They push all of our buttons and they send us crazy. They make us become someone that we are not. And they make us feel things that others don't. And they can simply just piss us off by looking at us. But really, can they have that much control over us? Well, only if we let them. You see, as I've talked about before, we control our feelings, not other people. No one else can make us feel anything. When we feel a certain way and we blame it on someone else, we are giving away our power to them. No one else can make us feel anything because our feelings are created by our thoughts, so we need to change our thoughts. When we allow other people to make us feel any negative emotions, we usually end up in a place of blame and victimhood. Oh, she said that to me, so now I feel like this. And that is living from a place of victimhood and not being responsible for ourselves. Don't get stuck in victimhood. Take ownership of your own thoughts and feelings. Take responsibility for your own actions and responses. Don't let your circumstances dictate how you feel. Don't let other people's opinions dictate how you feel. A woman in my coaching group recently, she said that she was sick and tired of her husband ruining Christmas because he was always saying negative things about the holidays. And then she realized that she was actually saying things to herself like, I am so tired of him ruining my Christmas. And she realized that by thinking that, she was ruining her own Christmas because she was taking on her husband's negative opinions, even if she didn't agree with them, and she let them ruminate in her head enough that they spoiled her Christmas to a degree. And once she realized that, she was actually able to change that story around and not let her husband's negative views of the holidays ruin her own. I don't know anyone who is without family dramas. I feel like my own family are like the original drama farmers. There is always one person not talking to another, and it is bloody ridiculous. I have tried so hard for years to bring everyone in our family together and be the peacemaker who made us this happy family, but I was seriously butting my head against a brick wall. It just got so hard. I was trying way too hard to control the situation, so I let it go. Just like Elsa from Frozen, I let it go. And once I let it go, I let all the cards fall in their place, And as it stands right now, more of the family are not talking to one another than are actually talking. And I got to thinking about it, and I was talking to my coach about it, and he said something so profound, and I loved it, which was that just because we share DNA with someone doesn't mean we have to share a life with them. And I was just like, hallelujah. Here I had been trying to force everyone in my family to kind of like each other and get along, and it turns out that we don't have to. Just because we're born into the same family doesn't mean that we have to like or even love each other. And when he told me that, I was shocked, I was stunned, and most of all, I was bloody relieved. I could just let it go. So if you can let go of any relatives who are dragging you down, do so pronto. It'll be the best thing you ever did. And I've got to say, once I let go of my own expectations of my family, and I realised that my brother and sister no longer wanted to be a part of our family, and that they weren't even trying to make contact with us anymore, and that they no longer cared for anyone in the family, it was so easy to let them go. Bye. What generally happens is that when someone chooses to go through a process of, say, self-development, is they disrupt other people around them. And, what was the status quo is no longer the status quo. And people inherently do not like change or unpredictability. So they reject it, which means that while we are going through, our own period of transformation and we're growing, our own families can be very uncomfortable with it because they are unaware of the things that we're working through, like, discovering our bullshit stories, being responsible for our own thoughts, feelings, actions, and lives, the self-care and the setting of boundaries, etc. They're not used to it. And suddenly you are changing the game on them and they are unfamiliar with it. So naturally, they resist it because it is unfamiliar. So we just let them go, and if they return, or better still, hang around, then we know they're keepers. Now, for those of you who are thinking that this is easier said than done, I hear you. There will always be some family members that, as much as we'd love to let them go in a heartbeat, we just can't. And we all have that one or more toxic person in our life that no matter what we do, they just cause us grief and peril. Well, firstly, they can't affect us until we let them. And that's the only reason they can affect us, is because we let them. Allowing them to affect you is giving away your own power. They can trigger us and bring out the worst in us and make us cross our boundaries and hurt our feelings, but none of it can happen unless we let it. Even the people who don't like us don't have to affect us unless we let them. Often we feel the need to remove someone toxic from our life, but it's not always possible because, of whatever position they hold in the family. But we need to understand this. People are allowed to behave the way they want to behave, which it can be very challenging for everyone around them. We can't control how other people behave. We just can't. But we get to choose how we respond to them, and we get to decide who we spend our time with. We can't be responsible for how they behave or they act, but we can be responsible for how we behave and we respond. And it can be harder to control how we behave around certain people. We are 100% responsible for how we act and how we react and respond. And if someone comes at me and they're disrespectful, I am responsible for how I respond. We are all accountable for our own behaviour, and we cannot justify our behaviour based on how someone else has behaved. If you're with someone and you feel resentful, bitter, or frustrated, you probably don't have clear boundaries. If you're around someone and you're constantly feeling annoyed or angry, then you're probably not managing your own thoughts and feelings. If you don't like how someone is behaving and you're trying to control how they're behaving, then you're probably going to feel frustrated and angry. So we need to notice when we are trying to control someone else's behaviour and stop it. Just stop it. And when we respond in a way that we don't like or that we don't want to, often we then blame the other person for how we behave. If you decide that you don't like how you think, feel, or act around them, then you've got other decisions that you need to make. And how we think around that other person, how much power do we give over to them? We need to take back our power and be in charge of how we act and think and feel around certain people. If you don't like how someone acts, then you just need to make a decision to disregard it and take no notice of them and walk away. We make other people responsible for our feelings when they are not. We get to decide what we think and feel and do in any situation. So you need to take back your power and know that no one can make you feel anything. Only you can. Remind yourself that other people can behave however they want, and it's up to you to behave however you want. You are in control. When we think someone is annoying, they're going to be annoying. And if we think they're toxic, then we'll see them as toxic. So change the way you look and think about other people, because that is exactly how they will be in your mind when you are with them. I hope this has given you some good motivation to get through the Christmas season and come out the other side with your sanity and your family relationships intact. And just remember, you get to choose who and what you let affect you. No one can make you think or feel anything other than yourself. It's just all a matter of practicing managing your mind. That is all from me this week. I will be back to producing weekly podcasts over the holidays, so keep an eye out for them. From my family to you and yours, we wish you a very Merry Christmas and an absolutely wonderful new decade. Stay safe, play nicely, and don't forget to take care of yourself and say no. All right, love to you all. Merry Christmas. Mwah. And that, my beautiful friends, is another episode of The Midlife Awakening. If you'd like more inspiration or to connect with other midlifers, head on over to my Facebook group, Deliberately Transformed. You'll find the link in the show notes. Until next time, cheers.